I am the Director and Editor-in-Chief of Revolutionaries. We are a small publishing company based on the Sunshine Coast, but operating internationally. I'm very excited to be with you tonight to launch two wonderful books from an amazing local author we all know very well. Dyann, if you're there, please say hello. Oh, she is not yet with us. Well, this is exciting. Hello. There you are.
Hi. Hey.
All right, thank you, thank you. I wanted to just start with some housekeeping. If everyone wants to open the chat, you'll be able to see it there, but I'll just quickly read off just some little notes before we begin. Please make sure your microphone is muted and you have the option to not appear on video, although it is nice to see all of your faces, so thank you. It does feel better than looking at icons now that I think of it. We will be recording this event, so if you feel uncomfortable with your face being shown and recorded, you have the option to jump on off. That's totally fine. We request that you hold any questions until they are invited towards the end of the event, and I will be able to ask Dyann at that point in time. We aim to be finished by 8 o'clock. Who knows where this journey may be taking us, hopefully somewhere really awesome. But we will try and wrap things up by then because it is a Friday night and we hope that you can all go on to enjoy your weekends or have a very early night, and I'm sure Dyann and I will shortly after 8 o'clock. I have put the links up for the free ebook download for both copies. Please take advantage of this, even if you have gone and bought a paperback. Thank you to everyone who has been buying all the paperbacks. We've been receiving your orders. But this really helps, of course, get more books out into the world, but helps us with the algorithm, beating the internet, showing that these books matter. So even if you do have a copy, please go and grab a free one. We love free things and it is our pleasure to provide them to you. You will also need to download the Kindle app for that to work, but hopefully you'll figure it out. Let me know if you need any help. And lastly, if you could please leave a review on Amazon and or Goodreads, that would be amazing as well, just so whoever finds these books out in the dense, scary internet by themselves, not knowing what they are, or if anyone recommends them, it will just really help people, especially new to the profession, understand what these books are about. So thank you in advance, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Well, now that that's done, I would like to, yay, would like to just talk a little bit about these books. So there are two books. They're both called The Revolutionary Social Worker. If you can't tell already, it means they are part of a series. So this is book 1 and 2. We have the main book, which is the Love Ethic Model. And then we have its companion book, the Love Ethic Companion. And our very skilled, talented author, Dyann Ross, joins us tonight. So thank you so much for joining us. I have some questions just to kind of paint a picture of how you came to write these books and how they sit as part of a broader picture of who you are and what your practice looks like. So to kick it off, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your journey as a social worker. No pressure. Maybe the condensed version if you like, but I think it's really interesting to kind of know how you and how you started off and how you got to this point now in your career.
We might just need everyone to mic.
Yeah. Ooh, we're good. All right.
Got everyone muted?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Wallea. Thank you for your lovely welcome and for hosting this event tonight. And it's really neat to see some of my colleagues here on a wet, rainy Friday night. I'm so glad you didn't all have to come out somewhere, that you can sit at home warm and comfy to tune in and lend your support. Thank you so much. And it was really pretty neat when we were waiting to get started. Mary was sitting there reading the book. It was just amazing. So that was pretty cool, Mary. Thanks for reading the book. Okay, so the question is very big and broad, isn't it? And you know, I came to social work out of a background of being raised in a family that had a lot of care in it, but it also had a lot of violence in it, all sorts of violence, including offences toward the children and myself as a child for not treating us as real full people, not giving us a voice, not asking our points of view about what we thought of what was happening to us or what we needed. And to me, that is a type of violence against a person. It's not respecting their dignity, their wholeness as a human being. So I grew up knowing care and I grew up knowing violence. And both those things motivated me to want to do something to make a difference in the world. And I found social work as an undergrad student and just was so excited, especially by the concept of social justice. I just thought, yeah, there was a lot of unfairness in my family, especially between the boys and the girls and how we were treated. You know, so as a very young person, social work just kind of resonated for me. But, you know, even as I started and practiced for a good 10 years in mental health, I found that it didn't matter what the theories were and it didn't matter what I thought even or who I was. It's how I was with people that seemed to make the difference. You know, after 10 years of thinking I had to have all the answers and have some fancy theories or something that would make a difference, actually just being with people and being present and showing deep compassion seemed to be the most important thing. Sometime later, like it would have been another 10 years maybe into my career, a social work student I was teaching at Edith Cowan said to me, "Do you know Bell Hooks?" I said, "Never heard of her." She said, "You might like to look at her work." And of course, Bell Hooks is a heroine of mine and an amazing black writer from America, as you may all know, on the ethic of love. And this word love was very strange. I thought, that's weird. Social work, and you're telling me I'm a social work academic and you're telling me about this book about love. It just didn't make sense. It was kind of like a really big jolt. But her work is so amazing and so links love to social justice movements and deep compassion for people and standing up for everything that we all agree to and agree with as social workers and colleagues in the helping professions. And so that started my journey of exploring where love sat in social work and in social work education. But, you know, it was another 10 years later, gosh, I was slow doing this, when I was doing my social work, my PhD, that I actually consciously used love and theorised about it to understand my practice, which is what my PhD was about, the place of the ethic of love in social work education. And really, then again, I didn't speak the word for many, many years. And I've been at USC now for 7 years. And it's really only in the last couple of years that I've started using the word in my teaching. And I found people didn't fall apart and didn't laugh and didn't think it was strange. In fact, a lot of people really liked the idea of love, belonging in social work. I thought, oh, okay. So, you know, it has led me to a real passion around and questioning really of why have we been so reluctant to use that word? And I know it's a confusing word in lots of ways, but no more confusing than other big important values and words. So it took a long time to put love at the centre of my practice. And what Bell Hooks means by love is not only care and looking out for people as in a family of origin that I was speaking about, but it is, and it's not only, well, it is the absence of violence, but it is the conscious practicing of non-violence and gentle loving kindness, and standing up for injustice and challenging the sources of and people who are acting against people and animals in the planet in ways that cause harm. So it's quite a strong notion of love. And I guess I've kind of theorised it in these books to mean everything that's important to social workers. I've just put it all within what the ethic of love is about. So that's how I came to these books. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we have covered many of my questions already. Thank you so much for that very thorough response. So, to summarise, you've had a very long and interesting journey as a social worker, starting off working in mental health and then finally arriving in academia later on in your career, even though that is now quite a while. 7 years at USC, congratulations. 7 is a great number. And so you talked about when you first started thinking of love, which was influenced by Bell Hooks' work, and then how you, even though you wrote your PhD on love, and it was about the love ethic, which was 18 years ago now. You have not since really done a lot of work regarding this. And you also kind of told us a little bit about how love is a very complex and dynamic concept that encapsulates all that is important to social work as a caring and just profession. So thank you, very, very thorough. So now we can just move right on to some other questions. So let's move on to the actual book. So can you explain in the most basic language you can what the love ethic model is? So if you were to find one of us on the street and we have no idea even what social work is, what would you say to them about the love ethic model? No pressure.
Oh, that's a really hard question. Okay, so this is obviously an interpretation of bell hooks' work, and it kind of sits in the tradition of all the great social movements of our time, including Black Lives Matter, especially within the Australian context, but not only within the Australian context, of where loving kindness and justice and non-violence is at the heart of all anti-oppressive practice, is at the heart of all social justice struggles, including for the planet. And this is the idea that Audre Lorde had, is you can't use the master's tools, as in the patriarchy. You can't use the tools of the patriarchy to dismantle the master's house. So you have to use the opposite of violence, which is non-violence, the opposite of injustice, which is justice, and the opposite of hatred and lovelessness and love. And so the book is an interpretation of those three key concepts or values and how to put them into practice. Yeah, so it's very much a book about values and being true to your values. Yeah, and that is where we become revolutionaries, by living our values, our higher order values, and coming back to them as often as we can if we find that we are getting compromised or veering away from them.
All right. So this book, The Love Ethic Model, what can people expect from it? What would you like for someone to walk away having after reading this beautiful, tiny but powerful book?
Because I write, your questions are very complex questions.
Okay, but you've got to answering them, so please go on.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, I hope people come away, if you get through the whole book, I hope you come away feeling affirmed for who you are and think, oh, yeah, that sounds like me, and I get that, and I'm doing things similar to that, and it might be a different language or in different ways, but yeah, I'm with her. Yeah, she's with me, and we're standing together here, The other thing is think, oh, is that who she is? I say that because, especially the first bit where I do a bit about my biography, it's this really, it's a piece of poetry, and there are other little bits of poetry through it, and I think, oh, okay, is that who she is? No, is that what she really believes? And oh my gosh. And I do that to not ask of others what I'm not asking of myself. Yeah. Yeah, so I try to be, I am as authentic as I know how to be in the written form about who I am, why I'm writing the book, and what I'm asking of others. And really, it's quite a big ask, because I ask a lot of myself and of my family, and I ask a lot, therefore, of the reader. Yeah, and so I hope they do something different if there's something different that they think will serve the planet from reading the book. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, it sounds like we have a bit of bedtime reading to do tonight. So there is also another book in this series, and it is The Love Ethic Companion. So why does the love ethic model need a companion? What exactly is it?
La la la. So it's just like the title says. It's a little book, and it's so little we hardly could fit the words on the back spine of the book. But we thought it'd be useful to be in its own little self, in its own little book. And imagine sticking it in your back pocket or your handbag or your pouch when you're out working, because it's actually a little kind of useful reference book that has ethical theories in it. So anyone who's just done the ethics course will think, well, actually, that would have been really useful. Thank you, Dyann. Not beginning of semester, not end of semester. Oh, yeah, no. So it's one of the reasons I wrote it. I thought, here we are trying to say to students, there are a bunch of values and ethical theories that can really serve you to know, because they centre your values and give language to your values to guide your practice. But it's really hard to find them anywhere. You either end up in a really heavy-duty, detailed account of a particular theory or an analysis of a theory, or just a really brief summary of it if you can find it. So that was, I thought, put it all in one book. So there's all the ethical theories, from deontological theory through to anti-oppressive First Nation worldviews, and of course the love ethic theory, which in the book I actually marry that. Well, I say that it is the best of all the other theories. It is the best interpretation of all the other theories, and it also incorporates some Western wisdom from Lao Tzu. Yeah, so it's got some really interesting aspects to it. Each of the ethical theories has a love-informed interpretation of them to help people who want to work from a love ethic know how to use those theories best. So that's one part of the book. It's the main part. Then it's followed by ethico-legal principles like duty of care, natural justice, you know, the classic ethico-legal principles that the helping professions need to be aware of. Again, it articulates them as simply as possible, gives a love ethic interpretation of them. And unique to this book, and maybe a bit out there to do, I created 7 new ethico-legal principles just in my own little sense of authority around these things, because the love ethic suggests these need to be so. And so an example of one of the new ethico-legal principles I'm promoting is the anti-discrimination ethico-legal principle. I believe it's at the base of many of the other ethico-legal principles, but needs its own articulation. And also principles like environmental precautionary principle, which is about if harm is likely, then don't do it. Hello? Don't harm the environment if you can't repair it. Hello? And some existing legislation already acknowledges it, but it has hardly got any traction because the public don't know it's there. And so I've also developed an animal precautionary principle. If it hurts the animals, don't do it. And I'm talking here about animals with economic value that are killed in the tens of millions. In fact, several billions of animals are killed every day. Yeah, because of their economic value. I think we have to really look at that. So there are new ethico-legal principles. And then there's a smaller section at the end of the book with relevant international conventions and important Australian anti-discriminatory legislation and initiatives like the Uluru From the Heart statement that we can all look to uphold in our practice. So just trying to be really, really one-stop shop, yeah, for the kinds of informing ideas to help you do practice from a love ethic approach.
All right, wonderful. Sounds like we all need to have a copy of this in our back pocket. And I know that when Dyann and I were designing this book, when we first started talking about this book, it's probably about a year ago, we really wanted an even smaller book, in the sense we were conceptualizing it as a handbook, but not in the sense that you often get handbooks that are very large. We physically wanted it to be something that could fit in your hand and be carried wherever you go. So if you need to know a piece of legislation or a particular theory or ethico-legal principle, you could whip it out, have a really cool cover and just be like, let me consult my handbook for this situation, because we thought that would be really useful for not only for students, but for anyone in the field who wants to have a bit of extra support and have, because it's not just for students, right? So Dyann, could you talk a little bit about who the book is actually for and how the design to work for not only students, but any social work practitioner?
Correct. Look, thanks, Wally. Look, so appreciate your support in this process, because it'd be a bit hard doing all the talking. So thank you. So it's a bit about the title as part of what you're asking. So the revolutionary social worker is for anybody. It says very early in the book, it is for anyone who acts with love. Anyone who acts with love. I believe Mother Nature already acts with love. So she's already a revolutionary social worker according to my concept, or, you know, exhibits revolutionary love. I believe all animals, unless they're trying to defend themselves or feed themselves, are loving, act with love as their first instinct. And so for any professional or any citizen who stands up to be counted, where there's injustice, lovelessness, or violence, they are my understanding of who a social worker is. So it's not someone only with a professional qualification. It's anyone who's willing, it says later in the book, to pivot toward love. Yeah. So did that answer all of what you were asking?
I can't remember, but I like what you said. So I was just following that journey. So everyone, seeing as we are all on Zoom together, I would now like to invite you, while we're finishing this Q&A segment, to put your own questions in the comment box, mostly just so it's not Dyann and I sharing our own ideas, as we have been very close to this process for well over a year now. So we don't know what you don't know or what you would like to know. So please let us know, and I will pose your questions to Dyann so we can delve a little deeper. So if you can get typing away, you can honestly ask anything. We'll give it a red hot go. And while we're waiting for your questions to come in, I was going to ask, so we've already covered who a revolutionary social worker is and who can be one. And I guess what Dyann was saying is that it can be anyone. And actually, I think on the back cover of the Love Ethic Model, it says it can be like any justice-seeking citizen. It doesn't need to be a social worker. So we are looking to extend that concept a little further, just to mean anyone who wants to be revolutionary love. Like, this book is for them, because I guess what's really fascinating and amazing about social work practice is that it is for everyone. Everyone has a social worker inside of them to some degree. Obviously, some people have a natural knack for it and a passion for it. But what social work practice is what I believe to be just a decent human being, a decent, loving human. So I think that's why it's really awesome that we now have a book that kind of gives a little bit of that professional power to other people and say, why don't you incorporate some of these social work elements in your everyday life? And the other really cool thing that I'd like to put in here is that the books are also saying that to be a revolutionary, it starts in the mundane. It is rooted in the everyday life, not just in practice, but in how we engage with ourselves, nature, the environment, animals, other humans. So it expands further than just our 9-to-5 jobs alone, which is really cool to be able to read in a book. That we can be revolutionary just as we talk here on Zoom, and when we go to the shops, and when we buy something online. Like, these are all revolutionary acts, because that is the current world that we live in. We have immense power as long as we operate collectively. So that's very empowering as well. So my last question to you, Dyann, before we go to the audience. So as I said before, we are very pleased to announce that these books are part of a larger series. So Dyann, could you, I can see that you're very excited about that. So can you tell us what else we can expect from the rest of the series?
Does this kind of commit me saying it? Possibly. I do want to make a commitment around it. So where the Love Ethic Model gets to, at the middle of it, it has a little set of scenarios about how to start to use the Love Ethic Model. And then after those 3 linked scenarios, which gives some examples of movement from lovelessness to love, not violence to non-violence, and injustice to justice, it has some of the complexities arising. So those complexities that are arising need to be tended to, because in fact they're the main complexities that social workers and other professions grapple with. Yeah, how do you get the powerful people causing harm to actually listen and then to change their behaviour? You know, it's those kind of they're the tough gigs. How do you survive in an organisation where people are beating each other up, yeah, or where it's keeping on adding to the trauma that's happening? So the next book is going to be about the madness of organisations and the incredible resilience, insight and contribution that people with emotional distress bring to our society. So it shows violence as madness, as not okay ethically, and people experiencing emotional distress as being stigmatised and harmed, and that's not okay, that they're not being understood and treated as people with their full human rights. So it looks at mental health. It has some scenarios about poor and dangerous organisational practice in universities and in mental health systems, because I actually think universities need to be places that model love and justice and violence for all our students and staff. So when they go out in the world to places like mental health facilities, they know how to be love and justice and non-violence. So I do have quite a critique of universities, as complex organisations, and also mental health systems as complex organisations. So that's the next book. It's really going to go into the nitty-gritty of in the trenches, and I know there is a question you'll come to in a moment, I think, that, okay, how do we take it to the darkest corners of the work that we do and bring light and bring love? So it really starts to go there, depending how that book goes as to what the other next books will look like. So in a sense, this one will have an organisational practice focus, how to be in an organisation and how to be safe and do good work, do love ethic work. And the subsequent ones will look more strongly at environmental issues, environmental conflicts and degradation. And there'll be one definitely on animal rights and animal liberation. So I thought also a book on love-informed interpretations of social work theories, mainstream social work theories, how to, if you want to practice from a love ethic approach, how you use everything from behavioural theories through to sociological theories, ecological theories from a love ethic perspective. So, you know, there's 4 or 5 more books to come there in time, but don't ask me how long that will take. Don't ask.
Well, we are looking forward to it and I cannot wait. So now, Dyann, we have some questions from the audience. I'll read out for now. Ooh.
I'm back.
Welcome back. All right. So Tina would like to know a little more about what you mean by revolutionary. As it's right there in the title. There we go. She's laughing. She thinks this is a great time. So enjoy that one.
Tina's laughing, is she? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I think we've got to be the revolution, and the revolution has to be enough hearts joining up together, facing the same way towards light, towards love and non-violence and justice, for all the layers of change that need to happen. I mean, we see the incredible example across the planet at the moment of Black Lives Movement, a Black Lives Matter movement, and it is incredible, the courage, you know, the fortitude of people who are standing together in very threatening situations sometimes to stand up for love and justice, and I think, and non-violence in particular. And so for me, revolutionary, and I wanted to put revolutionary and social work together. I just wanted to put, we are the profession who have the knowledge and the heart for this. We need to, it's not that we're not, we should not feel embarrassed to claim it, that our practice can and is often revolutionary, from the simplest act of love to a concerted social movement, contributing to a concerted social movement. So I think it says early in the book that revolutionary refers, and we mentioned this before, to any act of love and kindness and non-violence. And to the extent that you stand with others and collectivise and collaborate across all sorts of networks of people, then we build so this is where the critical mass theory comes in. When enough people pivot toward love and actively live it in their lives, the revolution will happen. It won't even need declaring, it will be happening, so it is that pivoting to love, the pivoting to non-violence, and the pivoting to justice in every micro aspect of practice through to every aspect of our lives, especially lining up the personal and professional, especially lining those two things up.
Well, there you go. You did a really good job. Thank you so much. I hope that answered your question, Tina. Yeah? Cool. Thank you. All right. Nicole would like to know if you've ever met Bell Hooks.
Oh, I would love to meet Bell Hooks. I have all her books. And I did write to her. Well, she's very hard to get to directly. I wrote to the Bell Hooks Institute, which is the closest I could find of people who might know where she is and how to contact her at the moment, and they didn't reply. And I don't want to be pushy, but I would have loved her to do a forward in the book. Maybe I'll just post a couple of the books to them, and if they like them, they might listen to it.
Well, if you say you want to write 5 books, I'm sure I can organise something with Bell Hooks. Is that a good exchange?
Oh, I'd be beside myself. I'd be beside myself to meet her.
We will see. You never know. We'll keep you all updated. All right. So this one's a question for me from Kerry. Thank you, Kerry. She wants to know who I am. So I probably gave a very speedy introduction. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get to the books and stop talking about myself. My name is Wallea, and I am the Director and Editor-in-Chief of Revolutionaries. We are a small book publishing company based on the Sunshine Coast, but operating internationally, mostly selling into the United States. So Dyann and I have a long working relationship and have been talking about these books since we worked on the other book, which you can see behind Dyann there, Eco-Activism and Social Work, out now with Routledge. Ask your library to order it in. So we have been talking about this kind of book for over a year now, wanting to put Dyann's lifelong work, practicing love, even though she has come in and out of it. For those of you who have been with us since the start of the interview, this is her life's work. So how do we package this into not only one book, but many books that can help students, as she is a teacher, a lecturer, but also to help other social workers, and make it something that's interesting, because I'm one of the resident millennials up in here, but I just want to say, like most books that I read that are academic, firstly, don't look exciting and are, incredibly dull, especially if you are unfamiliar with the content. So as someone who did an undergraduate degree, coming to these kinds of books, and I did many social work units, they were very hard to understand because they are mostly written for people who somehow already know the content. So we came at it from the angle of accessibility, something that got us really excited. And this is what we came up with, a book that not only talks about revolutionary social workers and how to be revolutionary, but hopefully a book that is revolutionary in the sense that it is different for the academic realm, and something that is exciting that everyone can display on their bookshelf, as you can see here on my bookshelf and also on Dyann's bookshelf. So that's where I come into play. I am the book publisher, but also I work very collaboratively with Dyann as a writer, and to make these books, to make something that we can both be really proud of. So that's who I am. I hope that answered your question, Kerry, and I hope I did not speak for too long. Let us move right along. All right, we have a question from Bindi. So she says, your book suggests it is not for the faint of heart, but I have a very weak heart. Any suggestions for how we prepare for the journey? So I suppose the first step is this Zoom session. This is the first step in preparing for the journey. What else can we do, Dyann?
Well, first of all, Bindi, thank you for your question. And there's nothing faint about your heart. There is nothing faint about your heart. You're one of the strongest hearted people I know, and the softest heart at the same time. Strong as in terms of your principles, soft in terms of your caring. Well, look, I think it will. I don't know how it will be, because I don't know who the reader will be, but knowing a little bit about yourself, Bindi, and to answer you very personally, seeing you ask such a pesky hard question, I think you already know that from our own conversations that we both love animals. And so for me, being a vegan is the ultimate expression of love of animals. I will leave it at that in terms of what I think will be the challenge for you reading the book. And actually for a lot of people. I know you love animals.
Oh yeah, Bindi's giving us her live reaction now, everyone. This is, thank you. So there we go. I hope that answered your question, Bindi. As someone who has read the books many times, I would like to say, even though it says it's not for the faint of heart, it's not that it's uncomfortable to read, in the sense that it reads very well and very smoothly. I think it will ask you many questions, so just be prepared to hopefully reflect on yourself, because it is about you, the reader, being a revolutionary social worker, and just be ready for that. I think the way that Dyann has written it is very gentle. She guides the reader as an equal through the book, definitely not coming across as an authority figure, as someone who particularly knows it all. She's just a peer who's experiencing this with you. So even though it does have that really strong statement on the in the blurb about not being for the faint of heart. I definitely think if you are willing and open to being a revolutionary social worker, this will be just up your alley. So I think the first step is picking up the book, seeing the cover, saying, yes, this sounds like something for me. And I think that, you know, you're already on your way, and just be prepared to be a little bit confronted perhaps, but maybe not as well. And let us know if you had to have a strong heart going into it, or if you were just fine.
Well, can I just make a comment about that same, further to what you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a real risk that books like this can get evangelical and kind of really presume to know and presume to ask a lot of people. You know, values are like that. I believe values belong to people, you know, so it's not for me to tell you what your values should be. So right at the end of the book, having kind of carried on about what I think is important, which can feel evangelical, I'm sure, even though I try not to be, there's a really beautiful quote from Kelly and Westerby. And they are two local, very respected community work activists and writers. And they talk about the skill of gentling. So think of the word gentle, and it's gentling. And they say that even, this is paraphrasing them, but there's an actual quote from them. This is their 2018 book. They say that even if you have ideas, no matter how good the idea is, if you put them on people, if you kind of force them down people's throats kind of thing, then you've actually just undercut your relationship of equality with the person, and just let the idea and the person find their own way. You know, don't put it on them. So don't be paternalistic and don't be controlling or imperialistic. And so I use that to unsettle my own rant, to the extent you can call the book a rant. And I just say, and then I say after that, look, please, don't take to heart what I say. If it's not for you, just leave it, you know, and just keep on as you are, because that will matter. Yes, so I do say that to try and counter that moral pressure that can build out of this kind of material. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. We have a question from Robin, who would like to know a little bit more about how to share this concept of love in practice. So how to talk about it professionally, and can you give any scenario examples?
So Robin, your questions are about us. Well, none of them are easy, are they? They're good questions. See, I know the people who are asking the questions, and I know they're already living and showing love in their practice, and that they already know the answer to that question. So I don't want to presume to be telling them something they don't know. See, the challenge is that it may be that you can't stand up against a violent situation or an unjust situation in the moment, and it may be that you actually have to resist without even saying you're resisting. And in organisations that don't heal and don't do trauma-informed practice with each other and with their clients or their students, then more often than not, we can't openly practice and speak love language. Yeah, so that's part of the complexity. And so often our practice will be resistive, trying to not buy into negative behaviour or violent commentary about people. Yeah, like it's. So it can be, it may not look like love. It may look like you're not really, you know, actively doing anything, but just holding a resistance, not colluding, not agreeing with harmful behaviour, I believe is some of the hardest expressions of love, and they can go unrecognised, and you can be unsupported in trying to express that type of love. Love is resistance. So there's some examples in the scenarios of resisting with love. So there are three ways to show love in practice. One is challenging yourself or others with love. So it's not acting in a way where people lose face. You have to find ways to raise concerns where the people keep their face and can hear you. So challenging with love, resisting with love, and changing with love. Yeah, so these are the movements we're looking for. So the resisting for love is where I think we will spend most of our time as revolutionary practitioners and people, just refusing to agree with Trumpism, for example, just refusing to agree with the debasement of people and ideas and the truth the truth of matter and all those kind of things. And it may not look like we're in the street with people, but it is actually holding that in our mind and heart, you know, what is good and true in a situation and with a person. So I think it's really hard to be very concrete about it. But if you look in the scenarios in the book, sorry?
I think someone new has just joined us.
Oh, yay. So the examples in the book give really concrete ways to how to resist. And one of the examples, just to be, sorry, I'll be really quick, but it might help. So one of the scenarios is in a community centre where a student on placement was trying to run a support group with the residents in a people with disabilities daycare kind of day. It's not a day centre. They go for activities and training and support to this community centre. And she started trying to run this group with people, with the residents or the attendees, and they started complaining about what was happening in the agency. Some of the residents and the visitors or the day visitors were being abused and treated badly, bullied and pinched. And she didn't really want to buy into what they were saying. She didn't want to really hear it because she didn't know what to do with it. Yes, student on placement, didn't want to kind of be offside with her supervisor, who was the manager of the agency. And so she had to look at not wanting to act, and in the end decided to raise it with management. It caused a reaction. She had a meeting with, she and one of the key young people at the community centre held a meeting with the manager of the centre. It didn't go very well. And after that, the manager, who was the supervisor of the student, actually started being really cool toward her, not having the placement meetings, yeah? So rather than let that look like the student was the problem, she and the day visitor, key other person in the agency, called the manager to a meeting to debrief, yeah? And actually talk straight, had a courageous conversation with the manager about, can we talk about what happened when we had this meeting, you know, with the residents and saying what they said was a problem. Can we talk about what happened after that? Because it felt to me like you really closed me out and, you know, were pushing me away and not agreeing with what I did. So it shows that willingness to challenge, that willingness to stand up and try and create a safe space to raise the issues and to try and resolve the issues. And out of that meeting, the key people agreed to come to each other if they felt that there was anything happening that wasn't okay with them, to come to each other as soon as possible, yeah? So it goes into that kind of detail, and it's a bit hard to get the whole story from that, but finding ways as things happen to respond and not let harm sit on top of harm, yeah?
All right, thank you. All right, just keeping an eye on the time. So we're going to smash out these last
Okay, I'll be quicker.
So that everyone can get to their free Kindle download and we can have a good, fun night. All right, so we have a question from Alka. So Alka would like to know, in what context does it mean to be revolutionary? So does it mean that you are a whistleblower? Because Alka feels like no matter how loud your ideas and idols are, your voice doesn't reach the ears it's supposed to. So maybe just give some examples of, and I think you already covered a little bit of it, but other ways that you can be revolutionary that aren't, you know, say protesting or doing things that are really extroverted per se. So what are some really small actions that every one of us can be revolutionary in our practice?
Okay, so one of the thanks for the question and the thought around that, Alka. Good question. So one of the motivations for writing the book is I think people have to, so many students especially say to me, oh, look, how do we do radical practice or how do we do anti-oppressive practice? Where we're working, it just isn't possible, you know? And it has to be that where we are, that we can, even through being resistive, yeah, with a wisdom about what we're doing, that we can make a difference. So where we are and who we are is where the revolution gets anchored, yeah? It has to be a collectivity of people doing similar actions in all the different places that we live and work. And so what change is about has to be understood in each situation. And sometimes sometimes you may need to be a whistleblower, but most people know what happens to whistleblowers, yeah? They usually are either leaving a job or lose their job, yeah? So if you want to try and work within a system, knowing what the change can be. I remember banging my head figuratively, trying to raise issues once when I was working at another university with the campus president, I forget what the actual title was, who was acting in terribly draconian ways with staff and students. And I was every meeting and I was raising questions and challenging her. And she was getting more and more angry with me. You know, she was very senior. I was really junior at the time. And somewhere along the line, after always speaking up and other people letting me be the bunny, always speaking up, and her putting me down and, you know, seeing me as the problem, I thought, hello, this is not going to bring the change. The change has to be cultural. The change has to be, yeah. We had at that time in all the senior positions in the university, all were women. And I just thought we would do it better. But no, that's not what patriarchy means. It doesn't mean the women do it any better necessarily once they're in power. So I had to come to how I do my practice with students, how I do my writing, found other ways of trying to think about what my contribution could be. So what I would say to students is students' work is so underestimated for the brilliant ideas within it. Yeah, and the learning that you're doing is already practicing and thinking and mulling over ideas that will be incredibly significant in your lives going forward. So if students got together as a collective and started publishing their work, you know, but even just writing their work, even doing the thinking of an assessment, I believe is making a contribution. But publishing, and I have helped students in the past publish their work, and it's so exciting and it's so beautiful, beautiful work that students know how to write, students know how to research and think, and students are passionate. These are all the elements for a revolutionary, you know, so writing could be where you make your contribution. Writing could be where you do it, yeah? Or it could be how you talk with your clients, yeah, and how you encourage them to collectivise, how you encourage them to think differently about what's happening to them.
All right, thank you. I don't actually think Alco stayed around for your answer, but I'm glad we all benefited from it. I apologise if I couldn't find you, Alco. I just wanted to check in, but anyway, good times. All right, we are on to the last question. All right, now I apologise if I say your name wrong, Sandra. No, okay, don't worry about it. All right, let's just move on. How do you maintain the loving approach when strongly challenged in your values and ethics? For example, hearing or seeing resistance to the current movements for minority rights.
Well, what I find so frustrating about this forum is I just want to hear what everybody else thinks about these questions, because we'd have an incredible conversation, wouldn't we? So love is about coming back to love at every opportunity, yeah? And I spend a lot of time feeling angry about Trump, and then I think, can I love this man? I think, well, he's offering an opportunity, just to use an example, he's offering an opportunity to people in that country and across the world, because he gets so much airplay, to turn towards love, to turn towards non-violence, and to turn towards justice. And what we see is almost like an extremes of behaviour happening. And the choice still is there for people as individuals and whole countries and presidents. And so I think to actually truly believe in the power of love is to rest in that and not get exhausted by what we see and not get disillusioned. Yeah, love is happening to a far greater extent every day. And if you think of nature, no matter how much we degrade her, collectively speaking, give her half a chance and she will recover. Give her, you know, like life just has this renewing, loving capacity. And so I really believe if we hold love at the highest order of our values and not believe that it's only about us, but it is about us, and we stand together with the animals and the planet, stand together, then we won't get exhausted and we won't lose hope. And because bell hooks understood love as the willingness to learn for our highest good and the highest good of others. So we have to allow space for people to learn, yeah? and to turn toward love. And Bell Hooks talks about she's looking for us to cultivate a culture of conversion where more and more people turn toward love. This is what we're here for. This is what we're holding the resistance and the hope for, that more and more people will turn toward love. Yeah? And I believe the Black Lives Matter movement, which has been around for as long as racism has been around, it's just getting named more intensely now. I believe that is an incredible expression. And one of the analyses of that at the moment is that more and more white people are joining that movement, to say, compared to the times of Martin Luther King and to the time of the referendum struggle here in Australia, yeah, and the land rights struggle, more and more white people are standing with, yeah, their black and coloured kin. As Haraway would say, we're all kin, and we all need to hold hope for our ability to love as the way forward.
Well, thank you for that answer. That was beautiful. All right, we have some more questions. So everyone, if you do have any more questions, this is your moment to put them in. All right, we have one from Sheena. Just a real clanger, just to really make you use your noggin a bit there. What is one sentence to describe these books?
One sentence?
Yes, pitch. What's the pitch? Because Sheena wants to share it around with their networks. So, Sheena would like to know how they might do this. It can be 2 sentences.
Yeah, it's very hard to be that succinct. Your values matter, and living them matters. Yeah, the more we can cultivate our ethical literacy and live by our values and come back to them if we feel we're veering from them, this is where our integrity as human beings sit. Yeah. So trying to live our values, be true to them as often as possible. I think that's the most important thing that the book encourages.
Great, wonderful. So you want to live your values? Buy this book. Or is that too much? All right, that's my job. I'm in charge of marketing. All right. Well, I hope that, Sheena, but hopefully after you read them, you might have a few better sentences to use. Let us know what they are if you think of any. All right, and then we just want to know where we can find the hard copy. All right, well, I can let you know, Nicole. I'm now posting the links again to the free Kindle download. And where to leave your reviews. Reviews really matter to us, not only because we want to know what you think, but also to help people who find the books who aren't already connected to Dyann. This will really help us reach more people. So thank you in advance. Please be kind to us. We would really appreciate it. And I'm also leaving a link to buy the hard copies. You'll see that they are available on Amazon, but if you buy it through our website, you will get them a lot quicker and they are cheaper because they're coming from our Australian printers. So I'm just leaving that over the side now. My email is there as well. So if you have any other feedback or questions, please let me know. We want to thank you so much for coming out tonight. And Dyann, did you have any final words to share?
Well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge you, Wallea. Thank you. Thank you for ushering this moment, ushering me to this point. I'm so honoured to be part of the first numbers of books in your publishing company. I think people of your generation are part of the hope, and I hope my ears are always opened to young people. And for your contribution toward that, I thank you. I just really believe, like, the people who are here are just attending tonight, example of some of the really beautiful people who are already living the love ethic. So this book is not presuming to say, it's kind of, because I talk about violence a lot in the book, it can look like I think the world is full of violence. I actually don't think it is, but we've got to make sure that love wins, basically. And I believe in the people, and the reason I'm an educator is because I think learning to love and learning to be with people, yeah, in all sorts, and animals and the planet. And I think it matters, and I think people matter, and yeah, I hope people like the book.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Dyann, for sharing your many long and wonderful sentences with us tonight.
Oh,
You can tell that you are a natural born talker, and that you spend a lot of time in lecture theatres doing this exact thing, because as soon as I asked you one question, you answered about 5 of them. So thank you so much. We all benefit greatly from your insight, from your learning, from your passion, and the way that you live the love ethic model in your everyday life. So thank you, and thank you everyone for showing up. Being a writer is a very lonely process, and Dyann obviously wrote this by herself, and we produce these books while being in isolation from the rest of the world. As I'm sure a lot of you can relate, it is a strange process. So it is nice to see so many faces. We're all really happy to be here and here voluntarily, so that means a lot to us, and this is very uplifting, and there's a lot of hope now in our hearts. So thank you so much, and we hope you take care of yourselves, and we see you for the next book launch. No pressure, Dyann.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.